So we are here again today interviewing one of our resident artists, one of my favorite artists, Marlan Yoder. He's local to Woodstock, Georgia, very experienced. We also have the privilege of having Bailey behind the camera once again, so using her skill set to help us out along our journey of how art speaks to people and planting seeds. That's kind of our whole mission here. We want to expand and expose and plant seeds in the art world. So welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. So excited. We have a lot of good stuff coming, a lot of good things in the works for the gallery. And I know that you'll be a part of that. Tell us a little bit about kind of your background and what got you to this point today, how you sort of evolved and found your niche.
My background you would never thought I would become an artist because of being raised Mennonite back in I was born in '53, so I grew up in an era where we were conservative enough that art was just not a thing, but it was always in me. So I knew really young that that's who I was. And in school, you find that out. Excuse me, the artists that I think we all kind of gravitate together. And so I knew that I had something, but in terms of what I would do with it, I had no idea. And I mean, I have very clear memories of walking through fields like in snow up in Ohio, and like cornfield with a shock still sticking out, and just wondering, like 4th, 5th grade, how do I get out of this little town? I grew up in a great old town called Hartfield, Ohio, and very, like what you call a sleepy farming community, and still very much that way. And most of my family still lives there, and I love my family, and I love Hartfield, but I knew I couldn't stay there. I knew I couldn't accomplish my goals. And so I just kept thinking, how am I going to get out of here? And throughout my life, I would hear this, not audibly, but in my heart and my spirit, God's voice saying, you're going to succeed. You are going to make it. And those were my words from how he spoke to me. I don't know if God says you're going to make it or not, but that you're going to be an artist, you're going to be successful. And I just never saw how it would happen. And then as I got older, I realized that, okay, I can't make a living as a painter. In fact, I wasn't even a painter yet. But I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so I watched Bewitched, and I liked what Darren did. He was an advertising guy. I said, okay, that's what I'll do. And I got into it, and I was in it for a little over 20 years. And the first job I had was retail advertising, and I remember being frustrated because the clients controlled everything. And the lady I worked with, I was 19, and she was probably in her 50s by then, and she just said, Marlan, I'm going to tell you right now, you will never be fulfilled creatively doing this work. And so you need to learn that now. And I was like,
she planted a seed. She planted a seed.
Yeah. This is what I'm going to do. And then I would paint on the side.
Yeah.
And that ended up what I did. Of course, I never loved advertising. I was decent at it. I don't know if I was good at it. I had my own agency for, I think, 7 years. And my wife worked with me. We were a small agency, and I would hire the artists to do freelance work. But I was always, wanting to write, wanting to paint. And so I just kept doing that. We moved down here in 1992, so I've been for 30 years. And it took me to pursue art, and Cheryl to pursue her work in business. And she's done that, been very successful. And I wanted to work in a frame shop, get out of advertising. And no one would hire me because I didn't have any retail experience. Like a frame shop would say, oh, you could be a manager because of your background with managing people and clients, but you don't know anything about retail, and you don't know anything about framing. And I said, well, how do you learn framing? You do that in high school. They hire people in high school, not old farts. So,
some of us are late bloomers. That's okay.
Yeah, and I worked at Sunglass Hut, and it was very humbling, humiliating. In fact, I would sometimes call Cheryl and say, can you imagine Edgar Allan Poe doing retail? I said, I want to kill these people. I'm not literally killing people. I wasn't meant to do that.
Right.
But I actually did really well with it. I would win awards and everything. But I hated pretty much every moment I was there. But it was really good for me because it humbled me, and it gave me a chance to, do something I really didn't want to do, and it made me, I think, a better person for it. And so then I got into framing and all that, and kept on painting. And then in 2011, I really heard God's voice very clearly. He said, "Go all out, go for it." So I did, and I started painting full time. And Cheryl had a dream, and we're not. I mean, I believe in God speaking through dreams because I know He has with people, but never through me in that way, and never through Cheryl in that way. And she, same time, the same morning, He told me what He wanted me to do. We were on our way to church, and I told her, and she said, "Well, you're not going to believe this." She told me this dream, and it was for her to support me. Well, technically, she had to support me financially because I wasn't making any money for a while. And but then what ended up happening, I started doing these. I went into deep depression after I shut the gallery down in 2009, and was just, lost. And I started doing these Tree of Life paintings that our pastor had talked about, this teaching on the Tree of Life. And it's not a New Age thing; it's a Christian thing. The Tree of Life basically is a metaphor for Jesus. And instead of us doing the heavy lifting and trying our hardest to be good, that because it's kind of hard, that we rely on Jesus to do the heavy lifting and literally lean on Him. And I would do that. And I was in depression for 2 to 3 years. And in 2011, when I started being full time, it just, one morning I woke up and realized, oh wow, I'm not depressed anymore. I mean, I had to go to a shrink. I went to a counselor who helped me. And she was a Christian counselor. And so she was helpful. But that was, there again, more spiritual stuff. It had nothing to do with art or anything like that.
You have to find your purpose.
Yeah.
That's a large piece of it.
And it just kind of happened. It filled up the halls in our church, His Hands Church. I have no idea how many pieces are there, but it's quite a few. Mm-hmm. And I've sold a lot through there, which was never a goal.
Right.
But I do sell them there. But
it just worked.
I'm free selling here.
Me too.
I don't have to give a commission there.
We'll share. Well, and Marlan's Work is actually in several places. So most of your work right now is at your church, yes, at His Hands. I actually purchased my own personal piece from Marlan for my own private collection because I saw that piece at a local restaurant. And so a lot of places around Woodstock also allow artists to hang artwork, and they try to promote. And then, of course, here we've sold several pieces of Marlan's Work, and people come in and they comment. Quite often, art catches a person's eye. So people will walk in and you can see them kind of scan the place, and then they'll kind of land on a certain piece that speaks to them. And quite often that's your work, and it's been described as euphoric, as calm, as fantasy, happy. A lot of people use that word. It's just happy. It kind of takes me to a different place, a dreamy place. And I believe people have said, kind of that spiritual calm place. So where your work is not realism in the traditional sense, right? And you're not, as you said, and we've talked, you're not painting something that looks like that perfect photograph. You're trying to add something extra to it. And I think that is definitely what people pick up on. And you have one fan that's bought several pieces.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I had the privilege of kind of walking through their house, and it's just beautiful. It's beautiful in that setting. So, and it absolutely speaks. And that's what they wanted. They wanted the art to kind of speak to that environment. And I mean, even the dogs, when they walk in the room where your work is, they're just calm. They're not yelping and hyper, and they're just calm.
And flies. And a bird actually pooped on one of my paintings
Oh, well.
I look at them outside, and that's a weird thing to say, but a bird sat on it, I thought, that's kind of cool, and then right down.
I guess it was giving you kind of like, this is my blessing, my approval. That would have been an awesome photo too.
Yeah, but I just looked at it, of course.
So now you're full-time artist, and you're painting, but working on some other arts as well. And your sons, they have their own artistic abilities, and we've talked about that. So they've kind of got that gene, and kind of passed that on. And in terms of kind of planting seeds, we plant seeds for our children. So my understanding is you've encouraged them in their creativity as well. So you're helping them to plant seeds so that their future will evolve too, and it'll go in the direction it's meant to be. So there's a legacy there. I mean, how cool would it be that a few years from now your grandkids or even great-grandkids are like, well, this started with our grandfather, this started with our great-grandfather.
Yeah, I hear people talk about who are really proud of it, and usually their granddad, but sometimes their grandma, who is really talented artist, and I would kind of get a kick out of that. We were talking with the boys on Sunday, two of them, Josh and Graham, and we were going to, just talking about when they were little and all that, and when they were big enough to walk and talk, they would want to come in the studio. So when they were really little, it was dangerous, I would actually have a gate up on the door so they couldn't come in. But when they'd come in, I would say, can we come in? And I said, yeah, but you have to work. If you're going to come in the studio, you can't play, and you can't bring any toys, but you can work. And so when they were really little, they would make books, and they would write them, and they would draw them, and then I would write the words that they would dictate to me. But they would just come in, and I would say, okay, and I picked up a word from a friend of mine who since passed away, Gary Miller, a great artist, and he would use the word project. He would say, I'm going to work on another project. So that I would use that word. And so when they were 3 years old, they would say, well, we want to work on a project. And they'd come in, and I would say, okay, and then you can paint. I'd get them set up, and they'd go, okay, what should we paint? And every time I'd go, oh no, that's on you. I'm trying to figure that out for myself.
Oh, I love it.
Back in the day when you don't have, I've got the Tree of Life. I have a series called Escape from Iowa. I have a series called Cow with No Home. I haven't done either of those for a while. But I have those go-to types of things. And so now I have something to fall back on. But when you have nothing, just from painting to painting and trying to come up with ideas, it's really hard. But they would do that, and then they both painted, when they got into high school and everything. But they're more musically inclined. And then my son Max is a videographer, and he's a writer. He's actually written a screenplay. He hasn't finished it totally, but it's an incredible story. He talked it out with me. It's a great story. I'm really excited for him. And my son Josh is also, he's written a what do you call them? They're not a screenplay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, screenplay. And Graham is a prop artist. Josh and Graham were musicians that traveled the country. Liquid Jungle was the first name, and then they called themselves Jungle. They were a big band in Atlanta, but they played New York, California, and all states in between. And then Jackson, our youngest, is creative. He doesn't do that for a living. But he's very creative, actually rather brilliant. So I think he can do about anything.
Mm-hmm. So what can we look forward to? What is coming in the near future for you and your art? What can we look forward to? Obviously more paintings, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good question, because I'm free. I just did some projects for my church. And it usually takes 6 weeks of all my time to do. It's a thing called Canvas, where we raise money for a needy family. And we do that every year. And so that always takes time. And before that, I'm not sure what I was doing. Other projects. And then now I'm free to paint whatever I want, which is kind of intimidating.
It'll come.
Yeah.
It'll come.
And then writing. I love to write. And working on a new book. So we'll see.
Definitely looking forward to every bit of it. So one of the things that we are also doing, and you may have heard because the cat's been let out of the bag, we are, and I had these ideas going in my mind for months. I think you know me well enough to know that this is always going. That's very symbolic too, but always going, always going. And then things just kind of fell into place when we went to New York here 2-3 weeks ago. And I got lots of confirmation about my own ideas, and things just fell into place. So we are launching through our gallery. We're going to start doing an annual awards ceremony to honor our artists. Now, it will be our artists, but it will also be artists outside of our gallery. And we're also going to include the written arts and the performing arts, which is music and so on and so forth. So we would love to honor you at our first ceremony. That's September 9th. And we would love for you to be one of our first resident artists that we can honor that night, if you can make it.
Yes. Give me chills right here. That's pretty cool.
We would love to do that. And I'll get you some more information. And hopefully it'll grow. I expect we'll be kind of a small group our first year. And Bailey's going to do all the videoing and photography for us. It's going to be very well done.
I'll definitely promote it to my friends.
Good. Absolutely. So, do you have any questions or anything else you'd like to add as we wrap up? Anything, if you had one quote or one idea that you want the world to know. And keep in mind, we're planting seeds. So 10 years from now, people will still be viewing this video. I'm just saying that in faith. So what do you want the world to know about you and your art?
Now, you caught me on that one. As encouragement to other artists, don't get hung up on making a living from your art. In the beginning, anyway. Be willing to do whatever job you do. I don't care if you're working computers, if you're a teacher, if you drive a truck. I worked most of my life doing other things. Most of it was in a creative field, but an unsatisfying creative field. And I just knew that this is what I was supposed to do. And I also did a lot of praying about it. And you know what I do? I do have a quote. It is this. I think it's the right word, quote, but it is basically, number 1, God. Number 2, Cheryl, and my boys. Then my art. And then everything else. And that's how I've tried to live my life since I was 33. And I can't say I've always done it. And I certainly haven't always put Cheryl or God first and second. And though I tried. I failed.
We are all human.
But that is pretty much when I realized I need to stop playing around and live the artist's life. And I thought the only way to live the artist's life is to take it on all the way and go through God and say, okay, this is what I want to do. I believe you're calling me to do this, and I need your blessing and your help. And He's guided me the whole way through. And I would even go so far and say He is my muse. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love to say my wife is my muse. She's definitely an encourager, and she gives me ideas, and she's got my back.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love your wife. I absolutely love Cheryl. She's a blessing every time she comes in.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. But I rely on God, and I know so many artists who are Christians who really never talk about that. And I don't know if it's because they think it's going to turn people off. I could care less if it turns people off. If somebody's going to go, well, you're a Christian artist. I'm not a Christian artist. I'm an artist who's a Christian. Mm-hmm. And there's a big difference. Mm-hmm. I do tree of life, but they're not religious. They're from the heart, and they speak of God, and peace and joy, and hope.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what my goals are with my art, is to encourage people in that way. Hopeful, joyful, peaceful.
Beautifully said. Well, we are thankful, very thankful to have you as a part of our family and a part of our growth, and definitely a lot more good to come. Maybe we'll have another chance to do this down the road, and we'll just see how the story evolves.
I appreciate it.